Hello, SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded. This will be a continuation, links in the description to earlier videos, but now I want to focus on connections between the Great Pyramid, London and New York, and these, and also Hermetic, esoteric, occult connections. Now, links in the description, New York on the Nile, London on the Nile, part 1 and part 2. Close that, and that was begun as well, Great Pyramid and testing the Nile Delta projection, how the Great Pyramid times 1000, so you take the edge length of the Great Pyramid, multiply it by 1000, it brings us pretty much smack bang to Port Said and Alexandria. Again, must include Nile Delta. It's a delta, it's dynamic, it's shifting. Geological activity even cause, well, it's near an earth, there's earthquakes there as well. So there are factors to consider. So this small inaccuracy, which is very, very small, is still important and relevant. So, and margins of error are so important in the study of these things, just especially in weights and measures and how they connect. But from the Great Pyramid to London, and so we see the Great Pyramid, I project that angle out. And we already looked at Cleopatra's Needle, so let's go to Cleopatra's Needle. Okay, before we go now, I've actually projected two lines there, and one of them is to Cleopatra's Needle in London, the other one is to the London Stone. And it's worth pointing out the canal here, how close it gets, and because just over here, and I'll do this in future episodes, this line is very, very close to the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, but that's not for this episode. So we project the line. There's a few interesting places along this projection, but here we come to London. Cleopatra's Needle, the London Stone being this other line, which also passes over Greenwich Royal Observatory. That was in previous episodes. A very small margin of error on the projection, which also, well, the 8-sided Great Pyramid, the equinox, astronomical connections, archaeoastronomy, that angle, if you include the indentation, gets even closer to perfect, and passes over all, so the line to the London Stone and the City of London passes over the Royal Greenwich Observatory, where we have, well, also the angle of the pyramid and the position of London north of the equator, connections to time and to navigation and Hermeticism, the navel of the world, or also axis mundi is another reference to consider, or the omphalos, or the umbilicus, or the Benben stone as in Egypt. Now that brings us, of course, to the City of London, the oldest of the 33 boroughs, and there we see a close-up of that projection over the London Stone, and as it goes to, so the London Stone, this is a very mysterious object, at least 1,000 years old. It's been referred to, sometimes connected to John Dee and the alchemy of that period. And there are various theories on its origins, whether it was a millennium or a gold or a milestone as being the center of the world, just like the umbilicus Roma or the omphalos in the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, or the Great Pyramid. Now, the Watling Street also being one of these streets connected to the Milky Way. Even so, for instance, Roman survey techniques have this cross pattern, which is connected to of the sky. I forget. I'll cover that. It's ancient survey techniques anyway. Survey, measurement, weights, Hermeticism all blends in together. Milky Way, Watling Street, Isis. She scattered the grains across the sky. She was escaping from Typhon, or sometimes referred to as Set, the Thames River, also still referred to as the Isis. As I mentioned previous episode, planetization rising reminded me of the famous Mithraeum, which was there in Rome, underneath the Bloomberg building, and of course lots of sacred geometry going in there. Lord Norman Foster, he, along with I.M. Pei, is in or Daniel Libeskind is in a small selection of these very important architects, and there are also sculptors and artists among this very small group who are so esoteric and occult in that references. This is the Mithraeum in London, and you can see they've even put a little artwork. Mithraeums are always in caves. There are a few here and there around the world in Rome and in some other places. Now, so we have the Mithraeum, the London stone, Watling Street, passing over the Bloomberg building by Lord Norman Foster. There we see the projection, especially this one over Royal Greenwich Observatory. The Great Pyramid is the centre of the world, or the navel of the world. Rapa Nui, Easter Island, the original name Rapa Nui, means navel of the world. This will also connect again Benben Stone, Omphalos, and some others, very important. But in the modern world, where is the centre of the world? Well, in time and navigation, it's London. It runs through the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, 0 hours, 0 degrees. Greenwich Mean Time, or UTC. All GPS coordinates based off this location. So this makes this a centre of the world. And London, and the City of London, which is one of the financial capital of the world, along with New York. So again, so if you focus that section, that's what we see up here. But London Stone, Watling Street, well, also St Paul's Cathedral off to the side by Christopher Wren. Christopher Wren also designed the London, the Royal Observatory there as well. Cleopatra's Needle, originally from Heliopolis. New York and London, the Cleopatra's Needle in New York, which has the scarab, or the crab, and the scarab, as well as the sun disk in the Cleopatra's Needle in London. These are centres of the world, navels of the world. They are like the Benben stone. They are at the centre of the world. So New York on the Nile, okay, links in the description, but the original, so now Statue of Liberty, covered this in the earlier episode, but the connection to that triangle, the pyramid triangle, as it sets up the Nile Delta, well, the original concept for the Statue of Liberty was for a liberated Egyptian woman being a lighthouse, a beacon to the world at Port Said, the Suez Canal, this important navigation connection. And that was the concept for the Statue of Liberty. Again, free links in the description to the New York on the Nile episode, but lots of stuff going on here. But the 7-ray diadem of the Statue of Liberty, which stands on an 11-pointed star, 7-pointed star, 11-pointed star, that's the proportions of the Great Pyramid, just like that projection from the Nile Delta. And that links to Phi and Pi and other things. But now the Mithraic cults, as in Mithraism, the Mithraeum in London. So there we see the tablet, the plaque found there. Notice the zodiac around the outside, but that's from London. Mithraism, very important feature, which will connect to the Eleusinian mysteries and some of these other ancient mystery schools. The Statue of Liberty, 7-pointed star, links to the Great Pyramid, which of course. So in the Mithraic cults, where we have Sol Invictus or Sol Invicto, 7-pointed star. What do we have? 7 rays on the Statue of Liberty. So there we see again Mithras, Phrygian cap, slaughtering the bull, 7-pointed star. There are 7 levels of initiation in the Mithraic cults. Level 6, the Sun Runner or the Sun Courier. Here's the symbol for it. Bang. There you go. Now the 7th level is the Father, or the Pater. Now the rod, the eye, and the crooked, what's the name? Forget it at the moment, but that bent knife is so whether it was for amputations, there are some other connections. I'll put another link in the description to Ninth Heretic channel and her most recent upload, because again, also in the Mesoamerican world, these bendy knives are an important feature, but that's used to slaughter the bull's neck because it's a curve. Unlike a straight knife, that curved knife allows you to, so just like when they did amputations in the old days, they wanted a curved knife because you can loop it around and it's much quicker. You can do an amputation in seconds, as where a straight knife, you have to almost let go of it and change it again. But the 7th level Here we have the Phrygian cap. Think Papa the Smurf hats. Yeah, it's another reference to it. That's from London. That's a standard in Mithraic tradition. This Phrygian cap. There we see there. The coat of arms in New York. The sun rays. That's a few things. Now also the scepter and but Phrygian cap. This is an ancient, important symbol that it's still going on. Now, come back to Cleopatra's Needle, City of London, Watling Street, etc., because there's another link here. So, Thames, the River Thames, or the Isis River. We look at level 7 of the Mithraic cults, and we have the fire shovel, and we have the thunderbolt of Zeus or Jupiter, and here we have a sistrum. Isis holds the sistrum. Now you'll also see it connected to Hathor. So Hathor columns is one of the forms of Egyptian architecture where they have Hathor. She's also depicted on the Nama palette and others. Very, very ancient, very important god in Egyptians. Here is the sistrum. It's a musical instrument. And it's connected to Isis. Mithraic cults have 7 levels of initiation in the Golden Arse, or the Metamorphosis as well is mentioned. There are 7 levels of initiation into the cult of Isis. There are Isis temples all over Rome. The Greeks and the Romans carried on this, and they wrote it. Actually, one of the better. So much of what we know comes through them. But there's more to that, because also this famous goddess Isis, 7 Mithras cults, which were open to slaves and women, for instance, but 7 levels of initiation. But also Inanna, this famous Mesopotamian goddess, very, very important, one of the most important. In the descent of Inanna into the underworld, she had to pass through 7 gates to reach the underworld. Each time she had to strip off a piece of clothing or jewelry. But again, 7 levels, passing into the underworld, just like Mithraic cults are connected to caverns and the underworld. And you'll also see Isis rescuing Osiris from, and that Osiris, Horus, and Isis, the underworld connections. The depictions of Osiris are of him being green. When Inanna passed into the underworld, she was judged harshly, and she was nailed to the wall and hung from the wall off a nail, and her skin turned green, just like Osiris. Connection as well. But Inanna holds the torch. Now there are arguments as to the exact meaning. It's the torch of illumination, or the liberty torch is another description of it. Oh my. So the centers of the world, the Great Pyramid, being a center or a navel or an omphalos or the Benben stone, just like as in Rapa Nui, the navel of the world. And this is an important series of connections. And there's a lot more to come in regards to this, especially in regards to survey and the positions of very important centers of the world. Now, what's another historical, still to this day, one of the most important, contentious cities on the world, Jerusalem, connects to the pyramid in an amazing way. But with that, I'll finish this episode up. Lots more to come, and have a good one.